All right, welcome back to the Coach Rob Show. I've got Coach Paul Wade of Brentwood Academy with me today. And Coach Wade and I have been talking about the first year under your belt at Brentwood Academy. You've been a coach for 34 years, and you did mention that schematically and with the kids, not really a surprise in terms of kind of what you've learned to expect and how you've because of your experience. I thought it was interesting too, Coach. I coached in 4 different states, and they always say with teenagers about 5 years is a generation in terms of how the culture changes and kids change. And I remember when Snapchat was brand new. I remember when high school kids, you probably do too, were still on Facebook, which no high school kid is on Facebook now. But just the way kids get information, the way parents try to navigate the tough job that they have has changed. But in terms of just not necessarily specifically at this place, but what you've seen over the years with teenagers, maybe families' approach to athletics and just how they try to balance things. And your boys are young men. They're both out of the house, grown.
Right, 29, 26.
So it's probably been a decade since they were teenagers in the house. But what have you seen has changed in terms of the way parenting is done, or the way kids have had to respond just to the way the world's changed?
It's a great question, Coach, and I would probably say that the biggest challenge has been the phone itself, because of the information and data that one can find on a phone. And I tell my wife all the time that comparison is the thief of joy. And unfortunately, kids today, and more or less moms and dads, it is all about comparison. Back when my boys played, it was a little more, I guess the easy way to put it is we have to spend more time today in today's society and today's teenagers of getting them to understand the importance of team versus what am I going to get out of it. I think of the way our society is driven, the way the cell phone occupies the entire life of young adults. It's about what am I doing? What can I show you that I have? And the comparison piece is brutal, especially for the kid who I'll call a tweener. You know what tweeners are. They're just not tall enough, they're just not heavy enough, they're just not fast enough, but they are good enough to play at the collegiate level. Those are the kids that get just shambled in the comparison issue today because coaches come in to recruit and they're walking around, well, they want to talk to the best players, which is great. That's what we want them to do. But it's the ones who kind of fall below that line a little bit that we have to have on Friday nights. That they're the ones that make our program what it is. It's the traditional BA type kid. Those are the ones that we have to make sure that don't get left behind because of what's blown up in today's recruiting world, just trickle down from college. That's now drastically affecting high school, and it's going to get even worse. So it has definitely changed.
Yeah.
The fact that coaches don't even have to leave their office, where they don't have to come by schools anymore, even though they still do the visits, but it's not as prominent as it used to be because the phone, everything you can get, it's right there in front of you. So it's made it challenging for those kids and families who are kind of in the middle.
Right. Well, I understand what you mean about the tweener. I was probably not what you'd call a tweener in high school, but moving into college, I was definitely kind of stuck in the middle of, not really getting the major college scholarships. Ended up walking on at Vanderbilt for Watson Brown, but I can remember getting letters from a lot of big time programs because people that I didn't even know were sending letters to Florida State but back then it was VHS tapes and letters in the 80s. But I remember getting visited over at NBA playing for Coach Owen by a coach from Davidson, a coach from Rhodes. We didn't even get kind of at the time, the 1AAs. MTSU didn't come, or Murray State and Western Kentucky didn't come. But I just remember, and that was mainly because I was probably one of the best players we had, and I was a tweener. We didn't have any, SEC dudes back then.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking, why would I go play at that place? I've never heard of Davidson.
Yeah.
I've never heard of Rhodes.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to be on ESPN.
Yeah.
I want to be like Danny McManus and play for Bobby Bowden is what I wanted to do. And so going to one camp at Tennessee, I remember going to a camp at Tennessee before my senior year and just being treated like a nobody.
Yeah.
And, they had a couple of 6'4" quarterbacks that they wanted, and I was 6 foot, and I'd never been treated like a nobody.
Yeah.
I was treated like royalty everywhere I went in Nashville. And so to go through that, you sort of, as a kid, the comparison thing was like you're saying, it's like you start to realize that maybe I was wrong to be confident. Maybe I would really have not assessed how good I was very accurately. But kids go through that, I think, from a recruiting standpoint. I think it's important now. The good thing about that information transfer is that some kids learn more about those smaller schools.
Oh, yeah.
That do enable them to maybe get excited. Of course, a lot of seniors, I think maybe 5 or 6. I know you've got Bo going to Swanee. I know you've got Isaiah going to Charleston in West Virginia. Gavin's playing a small school. Did Gavin decide on Carson Newman?
Yeah.
Yep. And so I know there's a couple kids at Samford that have been through here.
Yeah.
And then, you've got some big time players too. But it's really neat to see players want to continue to play and be excited about playing and not so worried about, well, if I'm not going to, play for a national championship and nowadays, make $1 million a year,
right.
They're not worried about that as much as just continuing to launch them into adulthood and what they're doing. But in terms of parenting, and maybe not just the athletic component, but when you're looking at the parenting aspect, and parents have to navigate, like you said, the phone is a big deal. And I think one of the biggest struggles parents are having, or maybe disagreements, is when and how to introduce that phone. But just in terms of the students and during the day, how have you seen just the phone be a part, or maybe even a disciplined restriction on phone privileges during the day? Has that been a big part of the student culture during the school day at BA? How has the phone been addressed just
100%.
as a school?
I mean, you would consider us a no phone school. I mean, even when kids come into fitness, they have to hang their phone up in one of those shoe holders that's got their number on it. If it's seen on them during the day, it gets confiscated by the office, and they get it back at the end, and they get hours, for Saturday school if they have it out. And because of just life in general, how important that's become to them. I read a thing to my class today, ironically, we're talking about this, that the average is about 4 hours and 23 minutes a day, not counting sleep. So that's really four and a half hours out of about a 15-hour day. And that equivalates to about 2.5 months of a year. And I said, can you imagine for 2.5 months losing that, not counting sleep, but just 2.5 months losing that time because of your phone? And we just talked about the comparison aspect. And so we as a school have taken that away, which in turn made my job a little bit tougher, because now they contact me, where a lot of times I was the third wheel. So coach is blowing my phone up right here while we're just talking, because recruiting opened yesterday. So they're want to get in contact with kids and want to come by or want them to call them, and so it's put it on me where now I've got to go find them and locate them and get information to them. So it's altogether challenging, but it's fun, and it's the part of having good players.
Right.
So we'll take it.
Right. Coach Paul Wade visiting with me from Brentwood Academy in the Nashville, Tennessee area. This is Drew Robison on the Coach Rob Show. Going to take another break. We'll be right back.